Welcome to the Shed podcast. We are shedding light on social issues. Please like, subscribe, share, click the bell notification so that whenever we drop an episode, you can be able to see. We keep shining the light on all issues affecting the citizens of this country. Follow us and like our page on Facebook, The Sheds podcast, and then on Twitter at The Sheds. If you prefer sending us an email, you can send us an email on at the Sheds podcast at gmail.com. Mwana Mhlekazi.
Mwana Mhlekazi uphile Mhlekazi.
Ndiphilile man Mhlekazi akhona.
No, I'm good.
Have you ever been a president of anything? A president of SRC,
Yes,
a president
Mhlekazi,
of
in my days,
a soccer
in my
team.
days.
Yeah.
I thought one day I'll be president of the country.
Okay.
Yeah,
What
back
did
in-
you
back in the
imagine
days,
involves the
Mhlekazi.
life
So in
of
your
a
days,
president?
you were the president of a Sunday school, maybe. Ne?
Yeah.
No, it's cool. I was the president of the school. Mhlekazi.
What do you think has involved the life of a president?
Yeah, blue lights. Mhlekazi. That's surely- yeah.
That's
That's
not always
what
the
attracted
case.
me.
Yeah, so you imagine blue light.
Yeah.
Yeah. Mhlekazi, namhlanje we have the youngest president in the land, the youngest president in parliament, the most problematic president, a president who will go down in history, Mhlekazi, as having held a bull by its horns.
its horns.
In fact, a buffalo by its horns.
Its horns, yes.
Yeah, ladies and gentlemen, we bring to you Vuyolwethu Zungula, we African Transformation Movement. Molo, President.
Molweni,
Molo,
bahlekazi.
Mhlekazi, molo.
Kunjani, President?
Siyaphila ninjani?
Siyaphila man. How does it feel to be a president? You know, it's probably the highest honor, Mhlekazi. When you fill in a form, I've seen them how you fill in forms, they Mr. Doctor, Advocate, President.
No, I think it depends. If you are a person who has titles and positions,
Yeah.
it's going to be a big thing.
Yes, yes.
Uzoba ne-ego. But if you're not position orientated, it's a huge responsibility because you need to conduct yourself thinking about the people that in your
Yes,
organization
yes.
look up to you. So it comes with a lot of sacrifice. There's a number of things.
Yeah.
Do you ever insist on being called a president?
No.
If
No, it doesn't
people
look like
come
a
and say,
type.
hey,
Yeah.
Vuyo is up.
Yeah, no, I can.
Do you not say, hey, the president? You don't say, come.
It's not my thing. There's a lot of things I'd love to do, but I'm thinking about
Yeah.
kanene, go call that reputation.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah, so being a president comes with a lot of
You
compromise.
can't be trying things as
Hey,
Koneni or
hey.
Mhlekazi, I
anything.
see when you're already ahead of yourself. Let's calm him down first. Let's get to know the man.
Yes.
Vuyo, which name do you prefer? Vuyolwethu Vuyo.
Vuyo. Yeah, Violet is a tongue twister, so
Tongue
Vuyo is
twister, yeah.
fine.
So who was Vuyo Zungula? Where were
Vuyo
you
is a
born?
big dreamer.
Where were you born and how was your childhood like?
If you can ask again who's Vuyo Zungula, I'll tell you, Vuyo Zungula is me.
Okay. And where were you born and what was your life?
You didn't get the joke, ne?
No, I missed it. I missed it.
Yeah, who's Vuyo?
Yeah.
Yeah, no, there's a guy who was asked about who is, they called his name and he responded, no, that's me. And he kept quiet.
End of story.
End of story.
yes. And now I get it. Yeah.
Vuyo Zungula is a young man that was born in the Eastern Cape, grew up for some years as Lalini. We used to wake up, see sang inkomo, we take inkomo to the fields, or sometimes siqale siyolima.
Yeah.
Then we walk to school. Then later on, we moved to Butterworth, Egcuwa, Msobomvu. That's where we got to experience growing up, Ekasi, the crimes, the unemployment, all of these issues that we know that associated with townships. From there, went to varsity, again experience how it is not to have funding, the exclusionary practices that you have as a student in the institutions of higher learning, the fact that you do not complete what you are studying because you don't have money.
Financial exclusion.
Financial exclusion. Uhambe uyophangela part-time and you need to pay debt. Imagine you are done studying. Then you have to work in order to pay, a debt close to 50,000. So the first time you get a pay slip, there's already a debt that you need to pay. Then from there you go work in the corporate sector. You get to see how capital gets to be exploiting, particularly with the race issues whereby you are there with this amount of experience, these qualifications, but you earn significantly lower than, your white counterparts. So I've experienced all of those things. Then, in 2018, a responsibility came that, hey, you must be part of this glorious movement called the ATM.
Okay.
But it's all been God's grace. I always, when people say, but did you ever plan? Sometimes you don't plan, izinto, because you may plan to be a CA. I actually wanted to be a CA, but God decided,
To go into politics.
this is a route that we are going to give you.
And any siblings? You know, can imagine having a brother who's a president. I'm a president, member of parliament.
Yeah, I know I've got a lot of family members. I've got a brother, a sister, cousins,
So
growing
you
up.
come from a big family. Yeah.
Big family. Hey, there's so many brothers, Oputi. You know how it is. man.
How do you relate? I mean, imagine as you have a sibling who is a president of an organization.
A member of parliament,
Do you have older siblings?
Yeah.
Now, picture this as he is a president. Obviously, his views are a line of march in an organization. Hierarchy dictates that when he has
Does it
spoken,
take that at home?
that's it. Now, at home, no figure wena mkhulu wakho nanku. Akalungu ngandilibali umongameli.
No, at home, you quite
You can say.
I remember one day I had an interview. So I'm busy on the phone. So one of my bigger brothers, Uta Anders, uyafika. Ekwatini vuyo izapha.
So you reprimanded. Yeah.
So I had to quickly mute so that the people on the other side do not
I'm being
hear
called
ukuba
kwetin.
I'm being called to order.
While that is
Then
calling
was
you
like
President
itandazo
Zungula.
uxolo mantanda sese-meeting sese-interview so ngicela ugqiba then ndizobuya kuwe yabo. So that's the life. Go to ezilalini. When you get there, people you grew up with. Abazani nanto ya president. Noma ungu-president eparlament or in your party, but phayana kwadini izohlinza nansi igusha, So you need to, respect.
Yes, you've got a position.
And I think it's a good thing because a lot of people in leadership positions get to be consumed by the leadership titles because they are given these honors, whereas they should be treated like ordinary human beings because when you are a leader, you are there to serve the people. So abantu must not continuously uplift you. In fact, even if they do, but when you must have the wisdom, xa bekuphakamisa abantu wena wehla, so that you always remain relevant and you always resonate nabo because awungomntu that is arrogant or that is obsessed with power.
Nyaneso asked this question. I think, I think he asked if I was ever a president of anything, and I want to pose the same question to you as well. Growing up, were you ever a president of any organization, or maybe in your crèche or your church?
With leadership,
did you ever imagine yourself that one day?
With leadership positions or leadership responsibilities, elokishini was ityani Hotman. So obviously, you're going to be respected, especially amongst your peers. So I was one of those respected in my group.
Okay.
Basandihlonipha nangoku. Even now, they'll tell me, hey, we still respect you.
So unguyela ntwana inhlontwayo ifaka lapha nangapha qhatywa impama nje for no reason.
Then in high school, I was a head boy. There were prefects. I was a head boy. I got to varsity. First year became a deputy chairperson of a student Christian organization called TASA. Then in 2012, I got to be the national chairperson for 6 years up until 2018.
Okay.
Then I was also treasurer at Spotlight, which is an organization that was identifying young people with talent in varsity. So we've always had leadership positions or leadership responsibilities whilst growing up.
And does that in any way, President, shapes you? I mean, being a national chairperson of TASA and all of that. Do you think, looking back now, and we'll come with to your leadership qualities and how we approach leadership, but do you think it's something that has shaped you? It has contributed to your leadership style, the TASA background, being a national chairperson of the student body? All of that.
Most definitely, particularly because, if you're going to talk religion or spirituality or, that type of an organization, it comes with serving because if you are going to be leading in a Christian organization, you are always reminded, but it's not about you, but it's always about the people you serve. It's all about the God that wants so much of you. Therefore, iyaphela laa nto of thinking, but you are doing this for yourself. Funeka ube nguzwi lakho. You need. It's always your views that must reign supreme. You get to understand, man. No, it's all about the views of the collective. It's all about the views of the supreme being that you are worshiping. So, coming from that background, now I get to understand, but. If you are a leader because of the people. The interests, the views of the people must always reign supreme. Otherwise, you can't want to be a leader of a band you cannot serve, because the first principle of leadership is that you must be willing to be led. Who's leading you? It is these people that are giving you a mandate. It is these people that are giving you, these are the interests, these are the views, because when now you're supposed to be led by their interest, and then you convert their interest into a program of action or policies, but your sole purpose of existence as a leader is always the people you serve.
Wow.
That's very humble.
It is.
He's very young, by the way. And how old are you, President? Your age is public knowledge, so you can't hide your age.
This is my last year being youth league.
Being youth.
Yeah.
Imagine, that's like 35.
He's 35, yes.
That's 35, and at 35, being in this position of being a president, a member of parliament, already he has an understanding that says when you are a leader, you must always understand that you are a leader because of the people. So you do not prioritize yourself. You don't take yourself out. Is it something that you grew up with? Is it something you learned during your reign as the leader in TASA and everywhere else? Or is it something that when you became a president, you're told,
No, it's something we grew up with because also remember, if you grow in a big family, there is little chances of you being selfish.
Yes.
Because obviously
You need to share with
you need to
others,
share, even if the attention of your parents, you need to share that attention. Even if it's resources. I remember growing up with my parents, remember asnamal. So one day kuzo you are at town with this one. The other day when you're going shopping kuzo anja with another person, another child. So ayenzeki land, but at all times you get what you want. So from those days, being a young person, I think at the age of 10, you get to understand, but I will not always get my way. I need to understand about the attention, the resources, the love will be given to my siblings. And it's not even Landukuba, it's your brother or sister. They are cousins. They are people who are not even part of your biological family. But if your parents decided they are going to be part of this family, you need to treat them and love them as if they are your biological siblings. So coming from that upbringing, then it makes it easy now when you are in a leadership position because you are used to relating to abantu, you are used to working kakuhle nabantu.
I'm interested to say, as such a young man, I'm 35, you're still a young person. And what propelled you, to go into politics? Was there any moment that or a cause that you wanted to champion? Or was it seeing people who are poor to say, I want to be a voice for the poor?
Sometimes,
or
do
the
you
voice
even
for the
go to
voiceless?
politics?
Yes. Yeah, let's start from there.
Politics came to him.
Yeah, I think everyone, if we're going to talk about the word politics, everyone is involved in politics, one way or the other.
So you can't escape it.
Yeah, the only difference is that other people do not formally get into politics by joining a political party, being part of leadership structures. But if you are going to be talking about, for example, community leaders, they may not be in a political party, but if they are servicing abantu, helping abantu, they are already in politics.
In your street, there's street committees.
Exactly. If you are going to be talking about even the Christian organizations, if you are going to be a church that decides, but we're going to build homes for the poor, we're going to provide, that's politics. The only difference that you are not formally in politics in the sense that you have a membership form of a political party. So I would say all of us, particularly if you've been in organizations, because I was in the SRC, Eskolweni, I was a prefect and a head boy. So obviously that deals with assisting students. And we're not
student politics,
and it was not a matter of there was a political party, then you get to be elected. We went to the wall, we campaigned, and the students decided to vote. Then after voting for prefects, there was 6 prefects. The teachers decided this one is going to be head boy, based on the understanding about this is the qualities that this person brings. So coming from that upbringing of always being in the forefront in terms of assisting people, however, you find that if you are in student leadership, you are confined to student issues. If you are for example, TASA, you are going to be confined to spiritual, academic issues, social issues, all of those issues. But when I had to transform now into this formal political role, which is being part of ATM, then I needed to have a worldview in terms of the entire facets of life, not limiting myself to student issues, but I need to be well vested in issues concerning crime, issues concerning health, concerning student issues, concerning everything basically. But the training and the upbringing from student life to varsity life, from being part of communities, because kwaselokishini emsobomvu, we're part of, assisting the local councillor there on issues. So that upbringing actually helped. I need to do my job kakuhle because all of those things actually gave me the foundation. So I would say I did not go to politics. Politics did not come to me, but I was born in politics. We're born in politics.
Cool. Before you became a president of the African Transformation Movement and its a member of parliament ultimately post 2019 elections, have you ever been a member of any political party?
No.
So you've never played a role in any political party?
No formal political role in a political party.
This is where I'm going. You become a president of ATM. Tell us the first time, because I'm thinking this, we have not been a member of a political party. Basically, you've never been a leader of a political party in essence. And you become a president of a political party. What goes through your mind? And why doesn't that make you pompous? I'm like, you know what? Me, you will all call me president from now on.
I would say it's only God, because I realized, and I still acknowledge even today, Kuba, it is God who put me here. Therefore, when I was given this responsibility, the only thing I told myself, God will lead me. Hence, you find, if I'm going to take a podium, speak about something, I say a prayer. Whether it's a debate or an interview or it's in a rally, I always, invite God, so that, because in my view, abantu ngabantu bakaThixo, it is God who knows the words that need to be said for his people to be satisfied. It is God who knows what needs to be done in his country for his people, so that we get rid of poverty, unemployment, all of these problems that we face, because there's no one that is created and that person is created by any entity besides God. So for me, I did not panic, because I just told myself, let me invite God, let me be led by God in this responsibility, because like we said earlier, I did not plan, unlike you, I never had any ambition of being a president. So when the responsibility came, I was like, oh, I get Thixo, ivela kuwe, I'm going to be led by you.
And you embraced it.
We have to embrace izinto zivela kuThixo, because at first I was like, but God, hey, I've never been in politics. Politics is volatile. It's very, very problematic in politics. And I did not even have that thing of being a public speaker. I'm a person who, even in church, I would prefer to sit at the back, sing like abanye abantu after church, ndihambe ndigoduke. I'm reserved, I'm shy. Even other people growing up are like, kuwe lona mfethu kaloku abanye they even go to the extent ethi man ukhula uyintwana ethuleyo even though besingawuqheli but at least ubuthule, so we don't expect you now to be in parliament addressing issues and not afraid to say, Mr. Ramaphosa, we don't have confidence in you. But if we're to look at you now versus how you were ngoku buyintwana, there's a big difference.
So you've grown.
We have to grow, because when God gives you a responsibility, obviously uzohamba nawe if you embrace him. Other people, they regress in leadership position because God gives them this position, but abantu decide to be led by their own thinkings. Abanye benze ezinye izinto bathwale over izinto that they do not need to twala for, instead of allowing themselves to be led by God, who placed them in those positions.
To
rely on some snake.
They will rely on other powers, whereas the power that gave them the responsibility is there to guide them. So, because another thing that I've learned, I've observed in politics, abantu want to mimic other people. You have your Barack Obama of Soweto, instead of being themselves.
Barack Obama, you can imitate.
Instead of being yourself, because you are unique when you are yourself. And there's something unique. You add value xa usiza unguvuyo. But if you are going to attempt to be another person, then you are depriving the world of this gift God has given you to be, which is the character yakho.
I want to touch on as Vuyo and as a member of parliament as well, and leading one of the political parties which is in opposition in parliament. And obviously, I mean, you are versed with so many problems that we have in the country. What keeps you awake at night that you say, this is my personal mission? Is it poverty? Is it crime in our country? Is it economy? What drives you? Because I think he speaks with so much passion. And even when he engages in parliament.
Even gets chased out of parliament for it.
Yeah, what keeps you awake? Yes. We'll get to that.
With the current realities in South Africa, there's nothing that pains me more than seeing pain and hopelessness in the millions of South African citizens. So, because what I do mostly it is to engage abantu, from your hawkers, from the unemployed, almost bonke abantu. So when you engage abantu and you feel hey, these people, abanathemba, simply because they've been voting since 1994. And because they've been voting since 1994, they've been let down since 1994. So when ufika wena, it's like, but kudala savota, what new thing are you bringing? Because all of the people that came before you. So for me, that hopelessness drives me to say, let me not be like the other people who came before, made promises, and they did not fulfill those promises, and they've disappointed abantu. Because, if the issue of trust, you could have everything, but if you do not have the trust of abantu, then you are nothing as a leader.
True, yeah.
So that is why, for me, it's all about that hopelessness that we see. Then go from that hopelessness, it drives me kuba I must always stay in tune with the issues about. I know, a lot of leaders in our country, they make a fundamental mistake of wanting to impose their own thoughts, of their own views. Uzoti, because mklambi, yena uhlala in a mansion with security, guaranteed meals a day, athatha position on an issue that is affecting millions of people, based on the comfort yakho kuba yena. These things are not personally affecting him. Hence, you find that majority of the leaders, something becomes a problem only because it affects them personally. Otherwise, when this thing is affecting millions of people, they're not bothered. Yabo? So I'm coming from a different school of thought to Kuba. When a person votes, I'm putting an X close to an ATM, this person is saying, all of my frustrations, all of these things are problematic to me.
Yeah.
I am handing over my power to you as an ATM to champion my interests so that ezinto zenhluphayo ningakwazi ukundilungisela zona. So that vote that we get as members of parliament okanye political parties, it is coming from the rich, it is coming from the poor, it is coming from abantu without any qualification, it is coming from all sectors of society. But we need to prioritize the most marginalized, because umntu that is wealthy, at least he has got a bit of money to actually have to fight his way. But a person without a job, a person who does not even have metric, when they put their hope in you via a vote, you need to take that responsibility very seriously and not allow yourself to be consumed by your own thoughts or own vision as a leader, because as a leader, you need to have a vision that is coming from abantu. You need to take the views of abantu, convert it to a vision, instead of you saying, Bonamna, I want this type of a country, whereas majority of abantu are not there.
As a follow-up to that, we are, and I think this does not require any scientist or analyst. We can accept that the country is in tatters. We're in dire constraints in every sector, be it health, be it education, be it energy, be it anything. What would you say, as the president of the ATM, South Africa is lacking? Yintoni le esingenayo ebangela uba sibe poor, ebangela uba kubekho 12 million people unemployed, ebangela uba a lot of things that are developmental in nature from which we should be benefiting, we don't have. What is it that South Africa is lacking?
It is leaders that love the people of our country. Because if you have leaders, once there's a saying from that, from the spiritual point of view, where there's a will, there's a way. Meaning, if the leaders actually love the citizens, there'll always be a way to deal with all of these problems. You'll find from time to time, analysts, other political parties are going to say there's lack of political will. The lack of political will comes from the lack of leaders that do not love their citizens. Because if you have leaders that actually love their citizens, they'll always act in the best interest of their citizens. I liked making this example or this comparison between Rwanda and South Africa. In the early 90s, Rwanda has got a civil war. In South Africa, has a peaceful transition from apartheid to democracy. A civil war, there's going to be destruction to infrastructure, even the psyche of abantu, because if you are going to be killing each other because of ethnicity, obviously there's going to be trust elements. But if you're to look at Rwanda now, look at South Africa now, you get to see, but in Rwanda, to an extent whereby I think they've got a phone that is developed in Rwanda. People in Rwanda, they get, in the villages, they get amayeza. But if a person is sick, there's a drone that is produced in Rwanda that is going to distribute those pills or medication of the sickly to medication of the sickly to abantu abagulayo. Whereas in South Africa, we are battling with potholes, we're battling with infrastructure problems, we're battling with unemployment. And I always ask abantu who still believe in the ANC, but that show us, just in the past year or past 2 years, what is it that the ANC has done that clearly shows ukuba they are doing something about the problems? Because, political will. Look at, for example, we've got illegal mining. Have they done anything about it? No. We've got unemployment. Has there been anything that is tangible? These guys are basically fighting unemployment. There is crime, gender-based violence rate here too. It is 4 times higher than the global average. But there's nothing. Look at the issue of infrastructure. Kenya, they were having a problem of cables being stolen, rail infrastructure being vandalized. Within a week, the president there, he issued an executive order, evala, all of the scrap metal scrap yards. Because whatever cables, whatever rail infrastructure, the transit point, the facilitation for you as a thief, as a criminal, will always be the scrap yards. Look at South Africa. There are some railways ezingakwazi usetshenziswa. We always wake up, ukuba there's a cable that has been stolen there. But ask yourself, what has the government done? Look at the action of Kenya, whereby they say, bona sukela ngoko, no scrap yard is going to operate up until we deal with this problem. Look at South Africa. It's not even months having this problem. It's been years. What has happened? Nothing. And it all boils down to one thing. There's lack of political will. And the lack of political will comes from the fact that the people that are in leadership actually hate South Africans. That is the honest, brutal truth. Ukuba, the people that are in government are babazonda ingati these citizens of our country.
I want us to spend a little bit of time on and just a follow-up on the leadership as well. And I think you spoke about, I want you to unpack what is leadership in a context to say that, not only that we have leadership in politics, but in all the midst of this challenge that we have in the country, unemployment, crime, but to say in other sectors, where's business, where's civil society in this, leadership according to you, if you have to unpack it, and do we have leadership in that, in business, when the country is going through this, in civil society, in churches as well, or religious organizations?
I think, from the textbook point of view, leadership is all about influence. So the influence would be there, but the question would be, is business acting in the best interest of the people? Are the churches acting in the best interest of the people? Are political parties? Yes, there's leadership in whatever right, but is this leadership in the best interest of the people? And the answer there is no. Because if it was in the interest of the people, there would be no church that would say we are going to remain silent because church and politics do not mix. Because if something is problematic to your very same congregants, it should be a problem to you as a church leader. You can't say, I'm going to stay out of politics. The reason why, so they have leadership, but they are not having leadership that is in the interest of abantu. Look at business. Their interest, it is the bottom line. As long as the economy is operating to their benefit. For example, the banks are enjoying South Africa now because the interest rates keep on going up. And when the interest rate keep on going up, they benefit.
The men in the street
Yeah,
is squeezed out. Yeah.
it is only the men in the street. So business, in terms of the banks, they have leadership, but it is not leadership whose interests are aligned to the interest of the majority of citizens. And it is short-sighted leadership because, if we continue in this trend, I can guarantee you there won't be a South Africa. What we saw in 2021, the riots were caused by poverty and unemployment. That is why when there was floods in the past year, there were some people that decided to loot. So if a person is going to say, the looting was because of the former president was arrested, that person is short-sighted because here's floods, people are losing their property, they're about to lose their lives because of floods, but other people loot. They are looting because kulanji, So if you are going to have leadership that does not think about, because this is, we're in a ticking time bomb, because you can't have 43% of the citizens being in poverty, being unemployed. You can't have 55%, close to 30 million of the citizens living under 1,000 rands per month. You can't have close to 70% of young people not working, and you think, Ukuba, that is sustainable. One day, all hell will break loose, and even these people who are leaders now are going to start wanting to think, Ukuba, what went wrong? What went wrong is very simple. They did not act in the best interest of the country, the future of the country. Because the first thing that we need to do is to be vocal. Yeah. You can't sit and say, I'm not going to speak. Speak the truth. If we as the ATM were doing something wrong, and I always say this, people must hold us accountable so that we are able to hold the ones in power accountable. Immediately, you as a leader, you do not want to be held accountable. You are, you are creating a space whereby you can even become a dictator. But if people hold us accountable, even now in their churches, in their community forums, in their meetings, in business, they must be held accountable, because if there's one principle that yields good results in terms of any functional state, it is accountability. The fact that we know that there's a high authority. You account to me, I account to Nyaniso, Nyaniso accounts to someone else. Then wonke umntu will act ngendlela right because they have to account. But in a case whereby a person can say, I can do whatever I want to do because I'm not going to account, then you are going to have what we are seeing in our country. Because look at the ANC. The main reason why they are doing all of these things that is destructive to our country, it is because they do not view themselves as accountable to the citizens. Because if a person was accountable to the citizens, immediately citizens are saying, we are sick and tired of illegal mining. They are going to change, their attitude, change their actions, because they need to respond to the cries of the people. How many times have women marched either to parliament or union buildings on the issue of gender-based violence? And what is a government, something tangible that they've done to show that they are responsive to the cries of the people? Absolutely nothing. So for me, I think leadership is there. However, it is not leadership that is aligned to the interest of the people.
That's a mouthful, Charles. You keep mentioning churches, President, and we live in a country where the majority of its citizens are Christian. Why do you think is the reason we do not see a dominance of churches in political involvement?
I would say the first reason, in the times of apartheid, remember political parties were banned. So people had to hide behind churches in order to operate. Therefore, the main message that was preached by the leaders in those times was that politics and church do not mix. That was, a clever way of saying to the authorities, we are not, we're not venturing into the political space. Therefore, do not attempt to close us. But behind the scenes, the church was very active in terms of providing support to people from the ANC, the PAC, and all of these people. Now, fast forward to after 1994, majority of sectors in our country, they said, okay, we've elected black leaders, people who understand, who know our difficulties. Therefore, we're going to take all of our hopes on them. Because before 1994, the people were so active, there was active citizenry. Because there's itoi, would wake up, asazi noma kutoyitelwa ntoni, but will be there in the streets. If kuthiwa kungcwatywa uChristian, kuzogcwala. All of the things that were affecting the political order of the day were actively involved. But that activity, active citizenry, it actually got to be reduced because we believe in the powers that be, but they're going to act in our interests. So where the church now is getting it wrong is that, number one, it has not transformed itself to be able to deal with the lived realities of its own congregants. Because if we're talking about the poor people, it is the congregants. If we're talking about unemployed, it's also the congregants. And the churches, they know this much better. Because if you are a congregant, if you have a problem, for example, wanting a job, you are going to your church leader.
Yeah.
If you have a problem paying your cars or your house, you are going to go to your
Or
church
domestic
leader.
problems.
Yeah,
yes.
domestic problems.
Ucela
So ucela umthandazo. So therefore, any leader that is thinking about the interests of their congregants would be able to say, but my congregants are crying.
Yes.
My congregants are the ones that are feeling the pinch of this misgovernance that we see in our country. Therefore, as a church, let us do something. But others, they believe that church and politics do not mix, which is something I'll never understand.
Which is in fact my second question to say, and I'm glad that you touched on this. And I think it's a bigger discussion to say today in South Africa, what should be the role of the church? What should be preached on the pulpit? Which I think given the realities that we have as a country.
Look, if we can talk maybe from a biblical point of view, here's God has got a problem with the state of the world at that particular time. He says, let me send someone to correct or make the world a better place. Hence there's a scripture, for God loved the world. So it's very ironic that you're going to have a Christian leader who sometimes references to the Bible, but refuses to accept that God loved the world so much that he gave his only begotten son. Meaning, if you as a church leader, you are of the same mind with that God. If God loved the world, now we love the world. How do you love the world? You take part actively in politics so that the world can be a better place, so that your children and their grandchildren and the future generations can inherit a better world. So that is what it is practically. So what needs to happen in churches is that people must be encouraged to actively play a role in terms of making the world, the country, a better place, because not only it is beneficial for them, for abantwana babo, including their future generation, but it is something that is godly, because it is God that he was the first person to love the world. So there's no way in which your creator loves the world where now you say, you are not going to involve yourself in a process that will make the world a better place. Because politics is a process that is set out to make the world a better place.
Fascinating stuff.
I want us to zoom into economy. And the president is vocal on issues pertaining to local economy. The president is vocal on issues pertaining to buying local. And all of that. And he's made an example about Rwanda being heavy on producing whatever that it needs to do within. Do you think as South Africa, we are an import-heavy country? And why is that?
We're a country that is just consumers. Yeah, we're just consuming. If there's a person who said, when the countries that produce think about, okay, we're going to make this product, I'm sure the first country they think of, we're going to sell it in South Africa.
So we're a market.
We're a market.
Destination.
All Indonesians are trying to consume. You are going to look at, chances are the clothes that you are wearing, check the label, made in Thailand, made in China. Go to your home, even a plate yakho made in China, your spoon made in
Your
China.
Italian suit.
Yeah, your Italian suit, yeah,
Yeah.
and it speaks to how that destroys the job market. Because if, for example, you have Adidas is a company from Germany, but it produces most of its product in Thailand or in Asia. Meaning, if you are going to buy Adidas, you are creating wealth for the Germans, you are creating jobs for abantu base Thailand, because that is where it is produced. Therefore, there needs to be change of legislation, a change of attitude from government. But at the same time, there needs to be change in attitudes from South Africans to say, we are going to buy local. Because when you buy local, because it's not enough for the government to say, we are going to create platforms, to support SMMEs to produce. But Tina, we're all about caring about Gucci's, Italian suits, because, Ovukataki, OIM, the one I'm wearing now, Omaxhosa, all of these locally produced brands, they are not going to go anywhere if we do not deliberately buy from them. And I want to use the word, I know other people, but we support black businesses or support SMMEs. And I've got a problem with that word, because if you're going to buy, for example, from the Italian suit, you're not supporting Italian suit, you are buying. Why are we using the word support when it has, black ownership or SMMEs?
As if you're doing them a favor.
It's as if we're doing them a favor. However, when it comes to Gucci's and others who are buying, supporting buying, you support someone, oh shame, whereas if you look at the quality of Maxhosa, look at the quality of Vukataki, look at the quality of Batu, it is proper quality. So we need to change our attitude to say we are going to be deliberate in buying from locally produced suppliers and in general, in particularly black, and we must not run away from this, because the economy of our country, a huge chunk of our economy, it is in white hands. And we can't run away from that, because if we want to create an equal society, we need to change the economic situation by making sure the economic players, the suppliers, the producers, the companies that are growing in the market are black, so that if the white people are here, so there's a bit
of equality.
Equality. And that equality won't be there if we as citizens, we do not take it upon ourselves to buy, and if the government now, because the government currently spends more than 80% of its trillion rand budget on white big businesses, meaning black SMMEs are only fighting for about 20%. And this is in contrast to countries like Germany, whereby there's a huge market of SMMEs and small businesses. Because think about this. Think about the time of a lockdown. Check how many Batu stores were open across the country. And ask yourself, how many Reebok, Nike, or other stores were open in that particular time, because Reebok and Nike have already reached their ceiling in terms of the economy. So whatever they get, they go invest in other economies. Whereas the small businesses, when you buy from them, they'll always look towards growing. And when they're looking towards growing, they are going to spend the money in the economy. They are not going to take the money and drain the economy biovula in other places. So that is why buying from SMMEs, if you're a citizen, you want to get rid of unemployment, the first thing that you must do, it is to buy South African in general and buy black in particular.
Why has government not done that? Why is there no legislation specifically and categorically restricting purchasing from international brands, number one? Number two, why can't government say, if you're going to sell a product in South Africa, make it here? Why are we so much? I mean, if like you made an example of Reebok, why must a sneaker from overseas come ready? Why can't plants be opened and set up here in South Africa so that there can be some benefit derived? So that tomorrow we've got people who've learned the skill and continue to do that. So I want to answer those two. Why is there no legislation clearly stating that by South African and maybe putting a quota saying this is how it should be? Why has that not happened?
It all boils down to the lack of political will. Also, the second reason is that these guys have got shares, these presidents and, these ministers have got shares in some of these companies. That is why they find it is in their favor, to actually, make sure that those companies are remaining dominant in the economy. And the third reason is that we've got weak leadership, because leadership that is very strong is going to do exactly what you are saying. If a company wants to come into the South African market, the government should have that backbone to say, all right, come trade in South Africa. These are the amount of jobs that you need to create for the locals. Look at, for example, Huawei. Last year, they were actually, it was exposed to Kuba, 90% of their workforce. Remember, it's a company from Asia. 90% of their workforce was not even South African. They are working here in South Africa. Similarly, this company, Imukuru, they were even found by a court to Kuba. They've got exclusionary practices of excluding South Africans from jobs, whereas they're a company operating in South Africa. And that speaks to the issues of, but we lack leaders with abane backbone and who are decisive to say, if you are going to trade in South Africa, we are going to make sure Kuba South Africans benefit. And lastly, look at, for example, the funding of PIC. PIC, if you check their funding, you find Kuba they are funding malls, the building of malls. But you never find the PIC, work on a strong element Kuba they are funding the opening of factories. I'm not sure if you because when it comes to malls, we are consuming. Even if the mall, yes, is close to the citizens, but what is in that mall, the products that are in that mall, if they are not produced here, we are not denting the unemployment.
Yes.
If the PIC itself had to have a quota to say, in their funding, there must be certain percentage or quota to say it must be factories, so that, look at, for example, we've got basic goods that, in my view, there should not be a toilet paper that is produced outside of the country, a toothpick, soap, all of these things that we use on a daily basis. Predominantly because if you look at Hammanskraal, Dimbaza, Ogcuwa, Oqwaqwa, the factories are there. The infrastructure in terms of the factories are there. The market is there because if you go to any township, any location, or any urban area, there is no one ongazosebenza toilet paper, ongazosebenza sepa, ongazosebenza all of these basic goods. But if you look, why is there no political will to make sure Kuba, the products that are the basic goods that are produced, that are used by abantu basemqanduli, they are produced around Mqanduli. That way the economy yasemqanduli gets to rotate amongst them, because that is how countries grow their economy. They work so hard to Kuba. You have a factory, you have distributors, you have a shop. In other words, Mali operator is circulator here. Kuwe, you are going to have employees, okanye people receiving grants emqanduli. They get the money immediately, they take it back, they spend it, and it leaves that economy yasemqanduli. That is why poverty, unemployment will always be an endless cycle, because the government has not come up with mechanism to make sure Kuba people of Egcuwa, economy yenu must try and circulate amongst nina Egcuwa. That is the only way in which jobs can be created. And the nice thing about job creation and reduction of unemployment and poverty, indirectly, you are going to be dealing with the issues of crime. You are going to be dealing with the issues of the socio-economic problems that we see, because it's a well-known fact ukuba ingxaki esinazo ezininzi, the root cause yazo, it is unemployment and poverty. So we lack that decisive leadership.
Mr. Vuyo, as you're about to conclude, I think we get in there. I just want to find out, as a young person as well, being in parliament, being in national position, and I think when you began the discussion, you spoke about the hopelessness of many young people who are delusioned and about what's happening, who are unemployed. What would you say, how would you inspire them? How would you encourage them to say, should we lose hope and throw our hands, who are looking to you as a leader in parliament? What's your message to them?
Look, there's something that many political parties, there's a chant, amandla. It's there's a joke, the leadership ngabo ngabantu amandla, the citizens okanye the crowd, their name is awethu, yabo ngawethu, yabo. So the leaders will say amandla, people say ngawethu.
Yeah.
So true power belongs to the people. So young people must reclaim their power, because there is no way in which all of these people that are arrogant now have got their power, besides you as a citizen, as a young person voting for them. If Abantu can decide we're not going to vote for the ANC, where will it get the power that it is that it has now, that it is misusing when it comes to governance? They will not get it from anywhere. So true power belongs to the people. That is why when there are elections, they give these grants, they bring food parcels, they bring alcohol, all of these things. It is because they know, Ukuba, they're begging your vote, which is your power. So young people must also understand, Ukuba, unlike the white minority, we don't have any other country we can run away to. So it is in our interest to get South Africa to work. And South Africa will not work out of the blue.
Yeah.
There needs to be practical steps that are taken to actually get South Africa to work. And that the start of it is young people must understand, because if you look at, for example, the likes of the people who are in government now, your presidents, ngabantu abadala, they've got so money, they've got so many investment.
So young people are not there.
Young people are
Most
not
of the
there,
years,
yabo. But if you look, for example, Tina, we're 35-year-olds who are going to live for the next 50 years minimum.
When we can plan for our future.
We can plan for our future. Because those guys, the reason why they're arrogant, because they are not, when they're thinking about 50 years from now, it's not there. They're not thinking about that
Hence
long.
indebting the country.
That is why loan after loan after loan, they're not even dealing with the issue of education. Because if you want to develop the country, what you need to get right is education. Because you are making sure that you are having a system to make sure that you've got capacitated citizenry that will be able to make the country to be self-sustainable. Look at South Africa. It's not sustainable. We are not dependent on ourselves. So young people must understand, Kuba, there is no other way. Yabo, there's kutwa when you are in danger. Kutwa don't flight or fight. Where can we flee?
Exactly.
We can't flee anywhere. So we have to fight. How do we fight? We don't need to destroy any infrastructure.
We must use democracy.
We must use the democratic systems of voting, being part of political parties, like ATM. Because if you look at the ATM, there's never a time a person from the ATM takes a podium to address anything without offering solutions. There's solutions to unemployment, solutions to crime, solutions to all of these problems, because young people must not be excited by rhetoric, because it's very easy not to say it's chance, but it is not chance that are going to make South Africa a better country. It is only practical solutions. People must say, but this is practical, it's doable. If you are thinking about buying black and how it's going to change the local economies, you can see, but this is doable. But if you are going to make something so complicated, don't be moved by empty speeches and empty rhetoric, but let us be practical, because it's only through practical solutions that South Africa will become a better country.
President, on being practical and having solutions, let's create a hypothesis here. It's elections today. ATM wins the elections. Vuyolwethu Zungula becomes the president. As ATM, you are to devise a 100-day plan to change the current trajectory of this country, which we all agree is downward. What do you prioritize to quickly salvage this downward spiral we are taking as a country?
The first one, it is to deal with unemployment. And like you've stated, get majority or big chunk of government spending to tilt towards small businesses. At the same time, you give, you sign executive orders to make sure, at the very least, there's a certain minimum of basic goods or goods that must be produced in our country. In other words, we can't be importing water. We can't be importing toothpicks. We can't be importing certain things, what we can produce. That is it on the economy front. You get able people that needs to design an education system that is going to take us towards the future. Because we cannot be operating on an education system that is outdated. Because if people now currently, this education system, it is not relevant to the current needs. So you need to have you need to have a foresight. And that foresight can only come if we get the brains together, make sure we've got an education system whereby by the time you reach matric, you are able to utilize a skill.
You should be employable.
You should be over and above being employable. You should be able to employ other people as well. You should be able to open and run your own businesses. Then that is on the educational front. On the crime front, you make sure Kuba, you go hard in criminals. Criminals must fear government, must fear the police, must fear law enforcement agencies. Not currently where there are some police who know, but if there's a crime there, there's a cash in transit heist, bazolinda up until the crime is committed. Because we are giving criminals too much rights. So we need to go very hard to an extent whereby if a person decides to break the law, particularly when it comes to rape, to killing, and all of these destructive crimes, must think, hey, these people are going to deal with me, and they're going to deal with me decisively. Akho criminal. Because a criminal, is a person that is destroying the fabric of our entire country. So, kumi criminal,
I see Vuyo is ready to be a president. When are you getting married?
Hey, come.
No. We need. They need to know, Mhlekazi. People have daughters out there.
To say, are you still available?
To say, are you still available? You seem to have solutions ready for this country. Next year's elections. When is the president of the ATM getting married?
Thank you, Chair. I plead the fifth.
Mr. Vuyolwethu Zungula, thanks so much for coming to the studio. I think that was we had a robust discussion and the fire that comes from
Indeed,
those discussions.
He's very passionate,
Yeah.
and this is the kind of leadership the country needs, Mhlekazi, to secure the future. At least if the leadership of the country is somebody who's young, 10, 20, 30 years from now, that person will still be around. He'll say, Waute. So thank you very much.
Just before you close, I want to say, Kuba, this is a brilliant platform because we get an opportunity to converse because as young people, we can't always be complaining. We need to have conversations about the future of our country. In the state our country is in, we can't be excited because we saw in nudes, Gabani, or there was a sex tape, because they don't take us anywhere as a country. As young people, we need to invest to cover majority of the conversations that we're having are conversations that are going to move the country forward. On the issue, I want to touch on this. In China, in Japan, in Korea, or TikTok or Facebook and all of these other social media platforms, when ukweza, let's say you're on TikTok, you are going to see more videos whereby a young person is producing something. Whereas in South Africa, you're going to see abantu abatwekai. You are going to see abantu who are walking nude. Now, what does that do? What does that do to mentality? Is that it makes abantu to be aligned to these funny things. Whereas the psychology of abantu in these Asian countries is that if another 18-year-old can produce this particular, it can be innovative, and their phone, now we'll be inspired to do the same thing. Wow. So we need more platforms like the Sheds whereby we can encourage young people to have positive contributions or positive conversations about our country because Lilizwe lead to it.
Wow, that's beautiful. Thanks.
Thank you.
The Sheds podcast is a brilliant platform. The president says.
I hope I'm in Memanga because
no.
Apparently in reputation your unfairly.
Here, anytime you can ask questions, raise your views, raise your hand, quote any rule. We won't chase your way here. No, thank you very much.
Thank you.